Have you looked around lately and thought, why am I still carrying so much for a life that has already moved on? Clothes from another decade, opinions that no longer fit, old habits still hanging in the corners of your mind like forgotten furniture. At this age, you begin to see it clearly. So much of what once felt urgent now feels unnecessary. And yet we carry it. Out of habit, out of guilt, out of fear of letting go. But what if this quiet heaviness you feel, this inner tug to simplify, to stop pretending, to stop performing, is not weakness, but wisdom? Researchers have observed that around age 70, people experience what they call psychological lightening, a natural shedding of identity layers that no longer serve them. Your mind is not declining. It is decluttering. Your soul is asking for more room to breathe. In this video, I will walk you through 9 things that slowly lose meaning after 70, and why letting go of them might be the most powerful, most peaceful thing you can do. I would appreciate it if you like this video. It helps me continue sharing these healing truths about growing older with strength, peace, and positive energy. And if any part of this speaks to your heart, just leave a quiet number 1 in the comments. As we grow older, something unexpected happens. The world outside gets louder. More noise, more advice, more expectations. Yet inside, a deeper silence begins to form. That silence is not emptiness, it is clarity. It is the soul sorting through what still matters and what no longer deserves to stay. Let us begin with the first burden many of us carry far too long. Tip number 1. Worrying about others' opinions. And how to finally stop. For most of our lives, we try so hard to be seen the right way. We dress a certain way, speak a certain way, hold back tears or anger or dreams, all because someone might misunderstand us. We become performers in our own story. But after 70, this act begins to lose meaning. Why? Because you've lived enough days, made enough mistakes, and carried enough titles to finally understand. No one else is qualified to define your worth. Social psychologists have observed that as people age, they shift from social comparison goals to authentic living goals. In other words, the older you get, the more your brain begins to care about peace over performance. I once spoke with Harold, 80 years old, who told me he used to spend hours ironing his shirts before Sunday gatherings, worried that people would whisper. But now? He wears what feels good, smiles at who he wants to, and says, "If I like who I am, that's more than enough." And he meant it. This is the gift of aging. You've earned the right to stop explaining yourself. You're not cold for stepping back. You're not rude for choosing quiet. You're not broken for no longer fitting into other people's boxes. This is not a loss. It's a return to truth. Your peace is not up for public discussion. Let them think what they think. You are finally free to live as you are. And once we stop worrying about how others see us, something else becomes clear. We begin to notice how much we've been holding on to physically. Cabinets full, closets full, drawers stuffed with things we no longer use, but somehow still protect. And the question softly rises. Why? Tip number 2. Accumulating material things and how to find real richness without them. In our younger years, things were trophies. A bigger house meant success. A new car meant arrival. We worked, saved, spent, and stored, chasing a kind of security built from objects. But after 70, something shifts. Those same things begin to feel like weight, not wealth. Researchers who study aging and minimalism say that older adults often experience cognitive congestion, where the visual clutter in one's home mirrors the mental clutter in the mind. In simple terms, too much stuff steals peace. I met Margaret, 78 years old, who once lived in a 4-bedroom house filled with antiques, paperwork, collections of every kind. She told me, "I thought I was preserving memories." but really I was preserving noise. So she began letting go, one box at a time. Not everything, just the things that no longer sparked peace. Today she lives in a small apartment by the lake, with one shelf of books, 2 teacups, and more laughter than ever. You see, richness after 70 has nothing to do with how much you keep, but how freely you can breathe. The goal is no longer to own more, but to carry less. You don't need to prove your success with space. You are the story, not your belongings. And when you make room in your home, you often make room in your soul. And once your home begins to feel lighter, something curious happens. Your calendar does too. You start to ask, why am I still saying yes to things that leave me tired? It's not that you don't care, it's that your energy is sacred now. And you begin to wonder, what if joy, not obligation, should decide where I go? Tip number 3, attending social events you no longer enjoy. And how to choose joy over obligation. There's a quiet kind of pressure that follows us into old age. The unspoken belief that we must keep showing up, keep being polite, keep attending birthday parties or church meetings or neighbor dinners, even when our hearts are no longer in it. And yet, researchers in aging psychology have found that emotional well-being after 70 depends less on the number of social interactions and more on the depth and authenticity of those interactions. In simpler words, meaningful conversations bring health. Forced ones bring fatigue. I remember Michael, 82 years old, who used to drag himself to a weekly card group, even though the laughter felt hollow. One day, he skipped it, sat by the window, called his granddaughter instead. And as he told me later, it was the first night in months I didn't come home tired. You don't have to disappear from the world to find peace. You just have to be honest about what feeds your soul. Say yes to the friend who listens without fixing you. Say yes to the garden, to silence, to books that make you smile. And gently, say no to anything that asks you to pretend. Your time is no longer for performance. It's for peace. And peace is a full enough appointment. And as we begin to honor our time and energy, another mirror appears. The one in the bathroom. For years, it may have felt like an enemy. Each new line, each gray hair, each softening curve, quietly judged. But now, after 70, we start to ask a gentler question. Is aging something to hide, or something to finally celebrate? Tip number 4, trying to look younger. And how to love the beauty that age brings for decades. The world tells us that youth equals worth. Wrinkles must be smoothed. Hair must be dyed. Bodies must be tightened and tamed. But over time, the effort becomes exhausting. And the cost is not just money, but dignity. Here's the truth. Gerontologists, those who study aging, have found that the more a person accepts their physical appearance in older age, the higher their levels of self-esteem, emotional stability, and even longevity. Your wrinkles are not flaws. They are the footprints of years walked bravely. Your gray hair is not surrender. It is silver testimony that you have endured. I once sat with Helen, 79 years old, as she applied lotion to her hands. She smiled and said, "I used to hate my veins. Now I think they look like rivers. They've carried me far." That moment stayed with me. Because beauty after 70 isn't about youth. It's about presence. It's about softness. It's about kindness in your eyes, steadiness in your breath, and warmth in your touch. The world may not always see that beauty, but you can. And when you see it, when you stop fighting the mirror and begin blessing it, something in you softens, and that softness is stunning. And once you stop fighting the mirror, you begin to feel something deeper shift inside. The routines, the clubs, the hobbies you once clung to, suddenly they feel more like obligation than joy. And a quiet question rises in the heart. Is this still me? Or am I just repeating a version of myself that no longer fits? Tip number 5. Keeping old hobbies that drain you. And how to discover new joy at any age. There's a strange kind of grief in letting go of something you once loved. Maybe it's a weekly bridge game, or a church committee, or a craft you were known for. People expect you to keep showing up. You expect it of yourself. But over time, the spark fades. And what used to light you up now leaves you tired. Researchers exploring interest shift in older adults have found that around age 70 and beyond, people naturally gravitate toward quieter, more contemplative pleasures: gardening, nature, music, spiritual reflection. These aren't signs of decline. They're signs of inner wisdom realigning. I met Charles, 81 years old, who had spent 2 decades leading a local veterans group. One day, he stepped down. Not out of bitterness, but because, as he told me, I'd rather sit with my dog and sketch sunsets than manage agendas. And now? He paints 3 days a week, smiles more, and tells fewer stories that exhaust him. The truth is, it's okay to change, to grow out of things, to retire from roles even if no one else claps. The purpose of life after 70 is not to keep proving, but to keep becoming. And sometimes, becoming means choosing peace over performance, stillness over duty, curiosity over repetition. Let your joy evolve. It knows where to take you. And as your passions shift and your schedule softens, one final question begins to stir quietly inside. Why do I still keep certain people close when every part of me feels drained afterward? The answer is often layered in guilt, history, or habit. But the truth is simple. Not every relationship deserves to grow old with you. Tip number 6, staying in toxic relationships and how to create peaceful distance. For many of us, relationships were built on obligation, family ties, old friendships, long-standing roles. Even when they turn cold, critical, or one-sided, we stay. We say, "It's just how they are," or "It's too late to change now." But psychologists who study emotional health and aging have found that one of the greatest predictors of late life satisfaction is not how many people surround you, but how safe and seen you feel around them. Emotional toxicity, even when it's subtle, steals years of peace. I remember Lorraine, 77 years old, who used to visit her sister every week. But each visit left her feeling small, dismissed, and unworthy. One day, after yet another passive insult, she decided to stop explaining herself. She started writing letters instead, not to them, but to herself. Letters of forgiveness, letters of release. And in that quiet boundary, she found her joy again. Letting go doesn't always mean cutting people out. Sometimes it means stepping back far enough to breathe. Choosing who you allow into your sacred space is not selfish. It is sacred. You are allowed to build a circle that feeds your spirit, not starves it. You deserve to be surrounded by those who offer kindness without condition, presence without pressure, and love without pretending. And once we create space from the people who drain us, something even deeper begins to heal. The quiet war within. That voice that says, "You should be more like them." The quiet measuring stick we've used all our lives. But now, after everything you've lived through, perhaps it is time to ask, why am I still comparing paths when mine has already carried me this far? Tip number 7, comparing yourself to others. And how to celebrate your unique story. Comparison is a shadow that often follows us quietly. In youth, it whispers about careers and beauty and success. In older age, it changes its shape, showing up as envy for someone else's health, grandchildren, travel photos, or retirement fund. But the core pain is the same. Am I enough? The answer, especially after 70, must become yes, in your own way, in your own rhythm. Always yes. Researchers studying happiness in late adulthood found that people who practice self-referencing, meaning they compare their life only to their past self, not others, report significantly higher satisfaction and less regret. I remember George, 83 years old, who told me, "My neighbor golfs, my brother travels, and I plant tomatoes. And you know what? My tomatoes bring me peace." That stayed with me. Because joy isn't in the scale. It's in the soil of your own life. The truth is, no one has walked your exact journey. No one has loved with your heart, healed from your wounds, or stood up from your particular falls. So how could anyone else's life be a better version of yours? Let their story be theirs. Let yours be a quiet masterpiece that only you could paint. When you stop comparing, you stop apologizing for simply being you. And that, dear friend, is where true contentment begins. And once we stop measuring ourselves against others, the next weight becomes clear. The weight of goals we no longer believe in. Titles we once chased. Dreams we swore we'd fulfill. But sometimes, what we once called ambition now feels like someone else's voice, still echoing in our mind. And we begin to wonder, is it time to stop chasing and start choosing differently? Tip number 8, clinging to goals that no longer fit, and how to redefine purpose at 70 plus. We are taught from a young age to set goals, big goals, lifelong dreams. And for many years, those dreams gave us direction, a career, a home, a family. But what happens when the path has changed and the goal no longer matches who we are now? Psychologists who study aging call this the purpose pivot. It's a natural shift in late life when a person lets go of legacy-driven ambitions and embraces presence-driven meaning. I met Diane, 76 years old, who once ran a successful bakery and dreamed of opening 3 more. But after retiring, she realized what she really wanted was not expansion. It was rest. She started baking only on Sundays, just for neighbors and the local shelter. And in her words, "I never felt more useful than when I stopped trying to be impressive." Goals are beautiful until they become cages. And sometimes, freedom means retiring the race, not because you gave up, but because you woke up. Your life is no longer about checking boxes. It's about checking in with your heart. What feels true now? What brings warmth now? That is your new purpose. And it does not knee, and when the goals fall away, when the noise quiets, when the mirror softens, and the people who truly love us remain, there's still one last burden many of us carry. A silent one. Not from the world, but from within. It's the guilt that rises the moment we choose our own joy. And now, after 70, the most radical act may be this: to stop apologizing for your happiness. Tip number 9, feeling guilty for prioritizing yourself and how to make happiness sacred again. All your life, you were the one who gave. You showed up, you sacrificed, you said yes, even when your heart whispered no. And somewhere along the way, putting yourself first began to feel wrong. Even now, when you choose a quiet morning over someone's expectations, or when you rest instead of rushing, guilt still knocks. But geriatric psychologists say that one of the key emotional blocks in later life is deservedness, the deep belief that personal joy must be earned, justified, or delayed. The truth? You have already given enough. Now is the season to receive. I remember Elsie, 85 years old, who always cooked for her children, even when her hands hurt. One day, her daughter brought her lunch instead. She cried. Not because she was ungrateful, but because it felt foreign to be cared for. And yet, by allowing that small act of love in, she began healing a lifetime of guilt. Prioritizing yourself is not selfish. It is sacred maintenance of the soul. You were not born only to give. You were born to be, to rest, to laugh, to read in the sun and hum old songs while watering flowers. Your joy is not a reward. It is your right. And the more you embrace it, the more peace you give back to this world, just by being full. So if you've made it this far, I want to thank you, not just for watching, but for being brave enough to reflect. Because somewhere inside you, you already knew. Some things just don't belong anymore. Not after 70. Not with who you are now. The truth is, you're not falling behind. You're falling into freedom. A deeper, quieter kind of freedom, where you no longer need to prove, perform, or please. Where letting go is not weakness, but wisdom. What a gift it is to look at your life and say, I choose peace over clutter. I choose presence over pressure. I choose myself, without guilt. So, which of these 9 things are you ready to release first? Which one felt like it spoke directly to your heart? Leave a simple number 1 in the comments. I read them, and I honor them. And if you'd like to keep walking this gentle path with me, I invite you to like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe for more healing truths and positive energy. Because aging should never mean silence, shame, or surrender. See you in the next video.